afternoon. Chuku kundu zongo gombo yi. Dorji sampagarab dorji dang. Shere singe bardu shin labdi. Deda mavzan tata tusum chi. Dzögchen jupe lama la solo de. Dorji chang chitilo naru dang. Marpa mila gompo tatapa. Na pupadang palden drupa suk. Kargyu lama namla solwa deb. Ochen lama namla solwa deb. Dzögchen lama namla solwa deb. Dzögchen lama namla solwa deb. Yandron dang nyandu lama namla solwa deb. Falkondu zhongdang yerme pa. Gungarab dorjijin tragpa. Jetidang nisume pai. Palamanam chetente. Erchong. This morning, we spoke of shine without an object and coming to a clear seeing. What is stillness? And what is the idea of stillness, the feeling of stillness, and the perception of stillness, which are moving, and learning to not confuse stillness and resting in stillness as the moving perception of stillness. And this does not clarify by words I say to you. This will only clarify by your own experience of resting in stillness as stillness without thinking about stillness. Feeling stillness, or trying to perceive stillness as a moving perception that comes and goes. We are still divided in three here: the stillness, the moving, and the perceiver of stillness and moving. At this point, when this stage is complete, shine, without an object, we permit it, not we force it, but we permit it, we encourage it, without any force whatsoever, without applying a doing or a remedy to it whatsoever, to mature from shine without an object to latong, direct seeing of isness as it is. This is done, and it is the path of seeing that we enter here. We recognize that the stillness is empty of movement. And we also recognize that the movement is empty of things moving. That recognition is the beginning of that which allows the dance of moving stillness, Trultra Naljur, the yoga of moving stillness or dancing stillness, to occur. The awareness, the perceiver of the moving and of the stillness, in recognizing that in the stillness there is no movement, and in the moving, no thing moves, turns its attention and notices that the perceiver is simply a reflection of the perceived. And so stillness goes to emptiness. Moving, since no thing moves, goes to emptiness. And the perceiver, since that is simply the moving stillness itself perceiving itself, also goes to emptiness. This allows the beginning of Tonglam, the path of seeing, the third level. Solam, path of accumulation. Zolam, path of focus, path of staying in one. And Tonglam, path of seeing. This is where the yoga of seeing the stillness, Siz, possessive, vitality, which is the awareness which perceives. The stillness itself perceives the moving as no thing moving, in no way separate from itself, the perceiver, which is itself the stillness. The moving, the thoughts, the feelings, all of them, thoughts, feelings, and perception, recognize stillness as the inherent state of being of the perceiver, and are nothing but the sparkle of this stillness, the clear light nature of awareness. And so, as the moving, the stillness and the awareness dissolve into emptiness, which is only one emptiness, the perceiver lets go of making anything out of this, of separating itself from this. And so resting in the dancing stillness as the dancing stillness, where Dharmakaya without thoughts, the stillness, and Trolwa, the moving, your thoughts, feelings, and perceptions all at the same time, because you have trained them with a pebble, focus themselves on the stillness, and without anything to move, and this being utterly obvious to the perceiver, are stillness as stillness, and in no way can interfere with stillness, being not anything which moves. And the perceiver itself is just this, and in no way separate. And so as one, perceiver, perception, perceived, all go to nothing. This is the vanishing point in mind, as is pointed out by Tawa. No thingness, which pervades existence. This is the path of seeing. And the how Trekcha arises at this point, quite naturally, without the confusion of requiring maintenance, effort, or energy. This is the path of seeing. Of what I just said, if you have questions, ask them now. And as people come on there, let me know. this path of seeing, I believe in Sanskrit is sometimes called Vipassana. But I am so unfamiliar with Sanskrit and so untrained in the Southern school methods that I can't really address that for you strongly. This is Trekchö. The no-thingness that you get dumped into head first in Dzogchen. This is where the three words of Garab Dorji, Tawa, Gompa, Sopa, come together as one thing. And the meditator, Gompa, awareness, the seer, the experiencer, the perceiver, recognizing the stillness of Tawa, is in no way separate from the thoughts that arise in Sopa. So in this place, Trekchö is entered by Dzogchen in the recognition of the seer as the seen, and the thoughts arising, thoughts, feelings, and perceptions arising as Tawa, in Tawa. Here, in Mahāmudrā, in the experience of Trultra Naljur, that would be yoga of dancing stillness or moving stillness yoga. The Trolwa, the moving thoughts, and the Troltro, Dharmakaya without thoughts, and the Rigpa which understands, recognizes, groks the two. All three are the same, and this is seen clearly. And the seeing is the seer, and there is no separation between seen or seer, subject or object. Do we have questions arising?
Yes.
Let's do some of those.
I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this correctly. Is Tamal-gi-shepa the same as Tawa?
I don't know the word Tamal-gi-shepa.
It's three words?
Shepa,
Shepa.
consciousness or awareness.
Yi, G-Y.
Gi of.
Okay. Tamal, T-H-A-M-A-L. Tamal.
Tamal. Don't know that word offhand, as it's written like that. Try telling me what your standard translation for Tamal is.
Is this path of seeing part of the 5 paths that go from sentient being to bodhisattva to Buddhahood?
Yes. This is the 5 paths of Buddha. This is the 3rd path of seeing.
Can you clarify the difference between Tawa and Trekchö?
Tawa is what as you enter Trekchö. Tawa is Dharmakaya nature of mind. It is the stillness. Trekchö is all of it. It is the stillness, the dance of the stillness, and the awareness which is aware of the dance of stillness as the dance of stillness. I just spoke of that in Mahāmudrā. Let me get back to Dzogchen vocabulary. Tawa is Dharmakaya nature of mind, open, wide open awareness. Awareness which is not singly focused on one thing or another. Gompa is to include this awareness in thinking, so that while you think your thoughts, you see Dharmakaya of nature of mind in the arising of phenomena, which is Nirmanakaya nature of mind, and you are Sambhogakaya nature of mind, the perceiver, the awareness, the vitality. This is the approach to Tawa, describing it as 3 parts, but actually it's a single thing, not thing, where the awareness rests as infinite, vast openness in all its inherent vitality, also known as clear light nature, shimmering with the sparkle of lively, playful creativity. So this is the union of the 3 jewels as one dharmata. And being that is trekcha. Say that question again.
One moment, let me find it.
Each of these things, as I describe them to you, I have to look at them freshly. I'm not going by rote here. I'm trying to show you.
Is this path of seeing part of the 5 paths that go from sentient being to bodhisattva to Buddhahood?
Yes, I answered that with a simple yes. It's the 3rd level.
Okay. Oh, this was the difference between Tawa and Trekcha.
So, Tawa is Dharmakaya awareness, which is the entrance to Trekcha, but it is also part of Trekcha. It is the root and the source of Trekcha. But Trekcha is the state which is inherently stable. Once you are all the way there. In the meantime, Trekcha is simply the practice of being there sometimes until you notice that it never comes and goes and never did. That noticing, if you are ripe for it, utterly stabilizes it completely in that moment. Because it always has been stable. What are you trying to do? Next.
Clarification on that previous phrase. It used to be used for the phrase ordinary mind by Trungpa Rinpoche.
Say the phrase again.
The Tibetan or the...
Tibetan.
Tamal Gi Shepa. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it right.
All the consciousness, this is the all-pervasive awareness, I believe, that's pointing to, which is ordinary mind.
Is this method that you are describing the same as what Trungpa Rinpoche taught as samatha vipassana practice?
No. I believe he did not go past here intending to and dying too soon. Many of his older students that I have met were stuck in Shine without an object, not having received teachings to go further, as he fully intended, once they had actually completed that, to take them further, but he died. Rinpoche took many of them as he went about to different Shambhala centers in Mahāmudrā, past the very beginnings of Laktong, through to the completion.
When I am focusing on work or learning something new, I am easily distracted and seem to be overly open and sensitive to erratic sounds in other rooms that take me away from the object. Is this normal, or does it mean I am too attached to concentration?
That's normal. Not for everyone. Some people are very sensitive to sound. Others, it's things flickering in their vision or coming into their line of sight, or irritating taggies inside their clothes, sensitive to texture. These different sensitivities are simply karmic formations. It's not that you're too attached to concentration. It's just that in the beginning, until you have established your focus better, you will be prey to distraction, and would do better if you can arrange for yourself a quiet place, just as some people will do better if they meditate in clothes without taggies, or facing something which doesn't do anything, rather than out into a room with things coming and going. Later on, this will matter less to you. But it is a constriction due to karma, and it's just the one you're working with.
Do you recommend any particular physical preparations or avoidances prior to meditation to help the mind enter the path of seeing, i.e. exercise, particular diet, teas, avoiding sexual activity, preparatory practices, etc.?
Nope. No, this doesn't depend on anything. Like the sky, it requires no pillar of conduct to hold it up. That said, for certain individuals who have certain physical problems, for example, if you are very allergic to nuts, I highly recommend you avoid nuts while practicing, because having an anaphylactic shock going into that will certainly distract you. So it has much more to do, any recommendations I would give to an individual, to do with a workaround for their particular nervous system, or for some physical glitch they have. For example, if you get rising chi, and you get your chi stuck in your head all the time, and everybody keeps diagnosing you with lung, I would recommend avoiding being a vegetarian. This is because meat is very grounding and solid and will drop the lung, especially certain kinds of meat like ox hoof. Makes a wonderful soup, drops the lung right away. It's the gelatin in it. That stickiness really slows down the movement of chi in the channels. Conversely, a sludgy, phlegmatic person might do better with a lighter, more rarefied diet that was predominantly vegetarian. This is all just working with the nervous system and the karmic formations you're handed, and adapting things to the least distraction and the greatest comfort for your personal body. Just common sense.
There is a brightness that is always there with the stillness. Brightness or light would be a perception, but it is always there, although sometimes it intensifies. Can this light, which was revealed by my root guru, be innate to stillness?
All phenomena in practice arises as symbols. This is the phenomena which is the symbol of vital awareness. Yes, it is innate to stillness, but the visual component is symbolic.
If this is that path of seeing, does that mean you failed to see mind nature if you don't have the traditional qualities of a first Bhumi Bodhisattva?
No, put those down. That's a different teaching and goes a different way and is much more associated with Lam Rim and a very gradual path. Leave that alone. You'll just confuse yourself. that teaching is given in a completely different context than this and is not accurate in this context. You see, all teachings, even every sutra, was given to someone at a particular time in a particular place, and so there was a context. When you take a teaching out of context, a lot of them simply are inaccurate in a different context. If I am, for instance, going to point at that candlestick like this, but someone has taken it the next day and put it over there, and I still take the pointing like this, it's not going to direct your attention to the candlestick because somebody moved it. So a lot of teachings are like that. They have context. So when you look at it, don't try to mix all the teachings together and to get them to dovetail and hang in some kind of algebraic logical way. If A equals B, B will equal A. If A plus B equals C, then C will equal B minus A. These all logical rules that make things set up and line up like that, they're about algebra. They're not about real life. Real life is messy. Dharma's messy. And every single teaching ever given was given in a context. And when you try to take one of those teachings to heart out of its context, the result is confusion. So go see who, to whom, and where, and how that teaching was originally given, and for what purpose, and what problems those people were trying to get past that teaching was effective on. There's one teaching, oh my God. There's several teachings like this. I'll give you examples. There's one teaching which is normally given to young monks at the age of about 13 or 14. And it's all about the nasty things that can be found in vaginas. It's really disgusting. This teaching is designed to keep nasty little monks with beginning sexual interest to avoid going and finding young nuns with beginning sexual interest and making babies and fucking up their practice. The context of that teaching is for coming into adolescent monklets. There was a Lama who was trained in that teaching at a certain stage in his development. Yes, it was right and proper. He was in the monastery. He was 14. Later, he came to teach Western householders. And because he had that teaching after this teaching and before the next teaching, and because although he was a nicely trained scholar, he really didn't understand the contexts of the Dharma, he proceeded to give that teaching to Western householders, most of which were women, as their guru, so they had to believe him. Can you imagine the damage done to householding women, their self-esteem and their ability to relax sexually by this? It was out of context. There's another teaching given to the little nuns at the same age about all the weird things you find under foreskins. Well, yes, it's true. If your man doesn't wash much, you do find weird things under there if he's not circumcised, and most Tibetans aren't. But this is a teaching for young nuns to keep them away from penises so they don't get pregnant. It's not a teaching for married household women, and should not be given to them because it's not their context. So the teaching about the bhumis and the characteristics and all of that is for a different context, not Mahāmudra and not Mahā'ati. So you leave it in its home, its context, where it's probably doing some good for somebody.
Is non-duality in this sense more like a blended smoothie or like a mixed fruit salad with various textures and colors but not separate?
More like a blended smoothie after you drank it. The empty glass.
Are there specific exercises in the path of seeing? I ask because I'm having trouble following the words at this point. It starts to sound like quantum physics.
Well, yeah, it is. Yeah. Get yourself a pebble. Where's my pebble? Oh, well, I don't know what I did with my pebble.
I can fish another one if you...
Yeah, got a pebble there on the windowsill over there.
Yeah.
There's a few little pebbles there.
Okay, here you go.
Yes, and thank you for that question. And this is where my eyes naturally fall. Take your pebble, or rest down with your pebble until you experience the stillness of a pebble as yourself inside yourself. This will take some weeks of concerted resting with the pebble, maybe months and maybe years. It will not occur in some hours. You're being impatient. The teaching occurs in some hours because I'm impatient with the amount of time I spend teaching you. I could do this slowly, teaching you a little bit every week, except in the past I've always been in a new place every week, teaching different people. And we may come back to that if this goes on for a long time of not traveling and being in lockdown. But right now I'm still teaching in much the same style I taught while traveling, of trying to complete things within each scheduled teaching, rather than take people in the nice, slow, old-fashioned, traditional manner through their practice. That was done when you lived there in the village, in the monastery, in the caves, with your homies. And there was one or two teachers there, maybe a few more, depending on how big the community. And they slowly gave one bite at a time and didn't give the next bite till you ate it. So under these circumstances, yes, there are specific, clear, and simple instructions. Rest down with your pebble until you can be still. Take away the pebble at that point and rest in stillness without a pebble. Do not confuse the idea, the feeling, or the perception of stillness with being still, with the inherent stillness itself. Be clear about this. It becomes easy to be still with the no thing, in stillness, resting as stillness, without thinking, feeling, or perceiving anything whatsoever. Do that until it's easy. Then, you, the doer of that, notice that all that moves, all the movement, the thoughts, the feelings, and the perceptions are not thingies. No thing is moving. And so the movement is empty of mover. Therefore, the movement is stillness. And the stillness being awake and aware, which is you, the observer, notice that the vitality of the stillness is what creates the movement. And that the observer of the stillness and of the movement, neither of which are anything at all, is itself simply a reflection of that. And as such, subject and object are empty. Yoga of dancing stillness. And this brings you up to where we are in the path of seeing. But perform the steps. Don't worry if it's all word salad. Perform the specific steps instructed, and the rest will make perfect sense eventually. Don't push the river.
Is Dharmakaya the gateway to Bodhicitta?
No, not really. In some context, you might say that it is, for it is the gateway for you to abandon liking some people and disliking others. Because when you recognize your own and all living beings' Dharmakaya nature, Bodhicitta is spontaneous. So in that way, yes, you could say it that way. Beyond Dharmakaya, Svabhavakaya, Dharmata arises as Bodhicitta. And yet the view of Dharmakaya is the beginning. The perception of Dharmakaya, the recognition of Dharmakaya is the beginning in Dzogchen. So in that way, you might consider it the gateway to that which culminates in the union of method and wisdom, the real Bodhicitta.
Is it okay to practice Trekchö and Shine in parallel? Or do you think it's better to do one or the other in order to keep things clear and not create confusion?
One or the other. However, you can, if you wish, if it clarifies things to you, in Trekchö, perceive Sopa as the yoga of dancing stillness. Until that time, in the path of Dzogchen, pick one or the other. Once you get into path of seeing, they're starting to come together anyway. And this is no longer Shine. This is Tonglam. This is past the path of focus in the path of seeing. So you're not doing Shine anymore here. You're doing what's called Hlaktong, direct seeing. At that point, there is so little difference between Hlaktong and Trekchö that it makes no nevermind. Both are done, whether thinking or not, feeling or not, perceiving or not. It's just a lot more time is spent preparing the not K-N-O-T, the not N-O-T, in Mahāmudrā, in a more linear way for those who happen to like a linear process. It really is just whether you're the kind of person who walks into the pool at the shallow end splashing themselves and slowly gets into the water, or bone dry without even checking the water, jumps off the high dive and gets wet like that. These are different personalities suitable to different ways of practice. One is very linear, and the other is split.
Is the life force energy from the lower chakras essential for the bliss and creativity of seeing, realizing, and being pure consciousness?
Yeah, but it doesn't have to stay in the lower chakras. As you get older, it has a tendency to be more centered in your solar plexus than in your groin. This is not experienced by all people aging. I think it depends on what your hormones are doing and if you're on HRT and what your testosterone levels run in Western science. But personally, I have noticed that when I have had physical things that knock my Chinese medicine, kidney system, Jing, and creating qi, when I knock that system, my hormonal system, out of balance due to something like way too much jet lag, and things stop producing the proper hormones for a while until I saw a good doc and got that under treatment. I had a too much tendency during that period to drift off into stillness and was developing an aversion to the moving. I'd lost my giggle and bounce. So in my experience, some natural energy in the lower chakra is helpful in maintaining the balance as we still wear a body and move through the world, of being able to move springily, adaptively, and functionally active. But that's just my physiological experience. Your experience being in a different body may differ. It is said in what textual references I have read that yes, that energy is important, for that is the energy that reaches outward and transforms into Bodhicitta. The energy of the Western direction, of lust, and love and loneliness, of mating and the urge to merge. When it's distorted by grasping, it wants to merge with that one, but not that one. It wants to mate this person, but not that person. If you remember Chogyam Trungpa, who had a very strong mating instinct and mating urge, he did not differentiate that much about who and what he wanted to merge with for the night. He was all over the place, young, old, male, female, pretty, not pretty. he did not have a lot of specific attachment to only feeling attraction for young blondes or older dark guys with beards or whatever your personal fetish is. So looking at this, both experientially and what I have read in texts, that energy is necessary and helpful. While doing Salung practices, it is rather important not to spend that energy randomly. However, in Dzogchen, and Dzogchen, that definition of conduct, not to spend that energy randomly, is not there. Leave things be as they are. Don't constrain or constrict. And in the old days, look at the context. The celibacy of monks and nuns was designed by the Buddha pre-contraception. Because what happens when you have a baby? You are not going to be making long retreats and focusing as your primary interest in enlightenment for the next 20 years. Not gonna happen. And that is the result of having a baby for most people. So, wanting to preserve the Dharma and get as many enlightened as possible, he went with what was available at the time for contraception. Abstinence. And while doing certain exercises, it is also necessary. That's Salung practices. But I'm not going to discuss which and what ones, because you don't do that kind of practice from a book. You'll do yourself a mischief.
From this stabilization moment, is this when attachment seems to dissolve of its own volition, as there is no thing to be attached to, as it is all the same phenomena?
Yep. But only if the attacher also dissolves. When there's a grabber with all karmic patterns are part of the grabber, and the grabber, by the nature of grabbers, will grab something. So there will still be hope and fear for as long as there is a belief in a independent entity to maintain. Not an intellectual belief, a gut level belief. And a lot of this practice, what I'm going to be going over with you tomorrow, is the releasing of that perception. Tonight we're going to be working on Trultra Naljor, path of seeing, meditating while thinking. It's just as empty as not thinking, since the thoughts aren't anything at all. And the same may be said for all phenomena, thoughts, feelings, and perceptions.
Would you say there is a large difference between this method of noticing the silence to distinguish it from movement and methods of noticing movement, such as trying to find the source of thoughts? I have previously employed methods to notice the movement and look for the source, which also reveals the silence. Is this similar?
Yes.
Okay.
I really don't see a big difference between the two. They just come at the same point from slightly different angles.
Can you speak about Choying Dharmadhatu?
Chuying. No. I have no words that speak about that. You will have to do the practice and see it yourself. Chuying, culmination of all dharmas. Dharmadhatu, all that is not. Nope. I cannot give you words about that without distorting it. Next.
During practice without an object, my gaze very slowly and imperceptibly rises up, and I find I have budged already when this happened a few centimeters higher. What do I do?
You had your stone too close to yourself. Rest where your gaze naturally falls. I think it might be a little bit higher up than you were having it.
Do you have advice for those of us who have done a lot of shine with an internal object, like the breath or mental image, instead of a pebble?
Well, with a mental image, you can put it down. Although, frankly, it's a lot easier to just move a pebble than to stop thinking about something. And you can't stop breathing, which is why the Tibetans don't use breath. Because you can't remove it to go without an object very easily. I would use the crutch of the pebble and try to retrain myself to use for the focus something I could remove. Because you have a lot of experience at shine with an object, with other objects, it shouldn't take more than a few weeks to switch that shine to with a pebble. I can't tell you, oh, wait a minute, with a visualization I can tell you, but not with breath. The method with the visualization is to slowly remove the visualization. In your sadhana, which is what I'm presuming you're talking about, there's going to be a place called the dissolution, where the object, your yidam, slowly dissolves into its seed syllable. And that slowly vanishes into no thing. And that's how you remove the object when it's a visualization. Then you rest in shine without an object, if that's what you're trying to do. Or trekcha. Or laktong, wherever your stage is. In the dilution stage of your sadhana. And sadhanas are generally given to people, to active people, or to people at active stages of their life, when many things go bump, when they need the entertainment and the complexity. And many yidams are extremely complex to satisfy that. But in every true yidam sadhana, this is when you're working with becoming the yidam in Mahāmudrā tantra and Anutantra, not in Kriya tantra, which is a whole different set of methods involving worship of something outside of yourself and service to something outside of yourself, and is for a certain personality context. That whole dissolution is just important as all the colors and all the implements and all the hands and the number of heads and the adornments. Just as important. And slowly over time, as you do sadhana, your creation part, generation part, should slowly become quicker, quite easier, because you've got the visualization down. And the lights go in and the lights come out and this happens and that happens. It doesn't take that long. And the dissolution part, where it rests in emptiness as emptiness and nothing happens, and you just sit there, should become longer and easier. Let that happen as it does without too much forcing. You see, you've been focusing tightly on this visualization, and now you let go. Dzögchen, Lacton. How nice. How comfortable and relaxing. Remain. We're good then?
Yep. We've caught up.
So I'm going to figure you all understand now how Lactong arises out of Shine without an object, and how separating the moving and the stillness and being very clear so you don't confuse them eventually allows them to be recognized as the same thing, and you yourself, the perceiver, recognizing itself as not other than that. At this point, immutable, unshakable emptiness rests in emptiness. You still will be distracted at times when you're moving about, or when your chi is restless, under the stimulation of intense winds in the channels, which are what feelings feel like. Either a cookie will go by or someone will piss you off, and you're going to have all sorts of feelings of desire and aversion. But through the yoga of dancing stillness, of resting in the dance of stillness as it dances utterly without movement, as that, not separate from that, as one, emptiness is. So tonight's practice, for a session after we're complete, and for a session tomorrow before we start, is Plaktong, direct seeing. Moving from Shine without an object to direct seeing by noticing. That the moving, no thing moves. Only the vitality of the perceiver permits within the perceiver the arising of the visions of thought, feeling, and perceptions, the dream of thought, feeling, and perceptions in which no thing occurs. And that itself is the perceiver, that infinite emptiness, beyond occurrence or non-occurrence, directly aware of itself. All beings the perceivers with their habitual tendencies of ways of perception. All these obscurations are purified by simply seeing the heart essence of what is. Infinite open awareness dancing with creativity of no thing and nowhere. Be free from even the shadow of suffering. It is not by intellectual concepts about phenomena and appearance that liberation occurs. Understanding this is futile. So don't mind if this is all coming through as word salad. Catch the telepathic component. Enjoy the symbols of phenomena. Look where we are pointing. You are that which is pointed at. Don't try to understand it. Even beyond perceiving it. Be. Be done with the crap. The victorious ones transcend the limits of all philosophical points of view. There is nothing to argue about where words never reach. Fully embrace the impartial without grabbing or rejecting. This is the non-actions of the Supreme Buddhas. Without trying, embrace, relax into the inherent and completely natural supreme non-result. At first, as you begin doing these practices, starting to sit with your pebble, your mind is going to feel like a waterfall in a deep gorge, rushing and hissing, full of entertainment. Then it becomes like the river Ganges, wide, expansive, flowing gently, so vast you cannot see the other edge. Finally, it is like all rivers flowing into the ocean. Mother and son unite. Mother luminosity of ground, your own inherent, enlightened awareness that has always been there. Child luminosity of path, that which is pointed out by the teacher, by the lineage, in the process of showing you how to see it. Recognize them as the same thing, not separate. Allow the natural clear light nature of the Dharmakaya to illuminate the gathered darkness in a single instant of seeing the luminous clarity of your own mind, the innate vitality, the very awareness of the awareness. Eons of gathered ignorance, all karmic formations are cleared. Alala. When awareness is aware of itself, purely and simply, without making anything out of it. even time and space are simply part of the moving, arising as no thing in nowhere, without substance or duration. Effortless scene of mind transcends all intellectual phenomena, beyond knowing or not knowing, beyond wisdom and foolishness, beyond accomplishment and loss, beyond error and correctness, and beyond the beyond itself. The final realization is achieved by neither effort nor apathy. If you would achieve it, transcend intellect, purpose, desire, and indifference, for these are all created mood bits and are moving. Ain't no thing and nowhere. Ain't nothing at all. Not even nothing. Cut the root of mind itself. Leave your awareness stripped naked as it really is. Recognize the forever stainless and just be. Perhaps this is the culmination of those instructions of the hippies. Be as you are. But I think you need all these other pieces to make something and let go. Appearance is neither hinder nor benefit. Don't try to fix them. Leave things exactly as they are. To neither grasp nor reject the appearance or the emptiness of the appearances of cycle existence is Mahāmudrā. No grabby, no shovey. Very simple. But getting to the point where you can do that, a little bit more complex in the beginning. It simplifies itself as you go on. The reason it's complex in the beginning, if I were to say, just be as you are and walk away, you'd be left going, huh? And then you'd make up all sorts of decorations around that simple statement. What it might mean. Just like some of you have done in the questions, decorating simple instructions with does it mean this or does it mean that. So as long as you need these decorations, there will have to be instructions of do this first and then that. And so you walk through them in Mahāmudrā in an order, doing this and then that, until you no longer need to. If someone of lesser capacity, like most of us, is unable to rest in the natural state, you can leave awareness in its essential condition by controlling the breath. There's a number of breathing exercises that I am not going to teach here, which are involved in solemn practices, which can assist you in being able to do that. So if you keep trying this for long enough and you feel totally like you're not getting it, well, that's a feeling, it's part of the moving. But if it seems stuck, go back to K-Rim. You can practice the 6 yogas of Naropa, or the Nyingma version, or the Bon version. They can be very useful. Through the various postures and yogas, the mind's grasp is lessened. However, even in doing that, you're not going to be able to get past that and culminate this until you let go of trying to get somewhere. If you cannot let go of trying to get something out of this, then you have to go back to active practices where you do things and get something. Of course, they all wear off. We've all made retreats in our life. You go into retreat and you get really high. Oh, so fine, so clear, so aware. And you come out and you come home and you got to deal with your family and the cat puked on the bed. Oh, it wears off. After that has happened to you often enough, you get ready to go to your teacher and ask for something that doesn't wear off or require maintenance. And when we reach the level of non-meditation, which we will talk more about tomorrow, that is the level where we are, where we are in the teaching. I was going to say where we are, and I realized that no, actually, most of us are not there. We're still practicing. It's okay. Don't be impatient. That's part of the trying to get something out of it, to get somewhere. You're not going anywhere that you aren't already. You're just letting go of the crap that makes where you are now unpleasant, scary, stressful, annoying. It is the grabbing and shoving that's bothering you. By settling your attention on mind, create the cause of Mahāmudrā, so the primordial wisdom union of bliss and emptiness arises. And the energies, the blessings of method and wisdom unite in meditative absorption. Now, do not do this at home. This is consort practice he's talking about here. You need a qualified consort and a qualified instructor, and it's often best if your qualified consort is your instructor. Learn it from somebody who knows how. You don't have to marry him. Just get the teaching. But be careful, because a lot of guys will say they know how and they're bullshitting you. Among Tibetans. Actually, a lot of guys among everywhere will say almost anything to get into a young girl's pants, regardless of age. It's a symbol. The symbol of consort practice is, and you act it out in the doing of it in very special ways under very specific criteria with a very specific person. But the symbol of the pattern of it, what you do is simply dancing the stages of the energies that are the same thing that we do in Mahāmudrā. You bring together Bodhicitta and emptiness. You bring them within and contain them, holding yourself steady in that. You return everything to its source and let it pervade all phenomena. Whether you do this practice in your body or by sky mating with matter, and you are both, which is a more advanced way of doing consort practice. We don't have to find just the right individual and get all those exercises together. Merge form and space. Bring them together to generate the innate creativity of vitality. Hold that, focus that, the innate awareness, the awareness itself focused purely on seeing itself in emptiness as emptiness. Hold that, stabilize that, let go, and allow it to pervade the universe. This is consort practice, done with the whole vastness of phenomena, with the infinite emptiness of Dharmakaya as the consorts. Bring the true together in true Naljor. This generates, the union of this generates the awareness. The awareness is held stable and focused within this. Held, released, which does not change it. All phenomena. Even time and space is simply part of the dance. For in that moment of releasing it, one is without attachment or desire. It is the utter relaxation, which is symbolized by the state you reach after an orgasm, where you're not reaching for another one just yet. The wisdom of bliss and emptiness arises naturally and spontaneously. And this will cause long life and wax like the moon, dazzling health, fresh, clean complexion, and the strength of a lion. We may be having some camels and elephants here. Since on the other side of it, you really don't give a shit if you sag and don't look all that fancy. Remaining in the completely ordinary supreme accomplishment. These oral instructions are the essence of Mahāmudra. in which beings of fortunate heart should dwell. The spontaneously arising Mahāmudra in all its splendor, spoken by the great master Tilopa on the banks of the Ganges. To the Kashmiri Pundit, the realized scholar Naropa, who had completed the 12 difficult trials on the shores of the river Ganges. Tilopa spoke the 28 stanzas of the Vajra path, pith instructions of the Mahāmudra to the one known as Naropa. Don't worry, there's more text. That was just Tilopa. Don't go all tweaked about consort practice. You only go do that if this doesn't work. Just another method. And no, I'm not teaching it to you online. Are there questions?
Yes. The first was, is consort practice necessary?
No. No, it's something you do if the rest doesn't work.
I find the concepts of Sa and Lung to be quite clear, but what is Tabli?
Creative life force. The movement. The liquid which is generated by the movement of the chi in the channels. Sa is the channels, chi is Lung. And the very movement of chi in Sa, the movement, the dance of phenomena in emptiness, this generates the creation of phenomena, the movement of awareness in emptiness, generates the creation of phenomena. You can see it either way, but you might as well keep to the standard pattern.
Are the minds of true lineage holders indivisible, but their individual expression manifests differently according to their respective personalities?
You could say that. It's probably about 85%, I'd say, towards accurate. Beyond concept, where all is and isn'ts aren't, there is neither individuality nor lack of individuality, because those are concepts.
Will you once more go over the instructions for today?
Yes. Having tried working with a pebble yesterday, today take away the pebble. This morning, I encourage you to do shine without an object, remaining still as you were still with the still pebble, without the pebble, without any object to focus on. But still there is focus. This afternoon, This morning I also included separating, moving from stillness, you know which is which, and your focus should be specifically on stillness to the exclusion of movement this morning. Now this afternoon I took you from there, focusing on stillness with the exclusion of movement, to as stillness from stillness, begin to notice that in movement there are no thing moving. And as such, the movement arises as stillness, in stillness, without in any way stopping or changing itself, without in any way disturbing the stillness. Think of the moving as thoughts for a moment. That's a limited perception of it because it includes feelings and perceptions, but think of it as thoughts. So at this point, when you can actually see that the thoughts are no thing and nowhere, they do not interfere with the stillness, nor does the stillness interfere with thinking. They are not separate. Yoga of dancing stillness. Seeing the lack of separation between thinking and stillness is Gam of last week. Meditating while thinking. It is Sopa of last week. The thoughts spontaneously arise as no thing in nowhere, and spontaneously dissolve, having neither substance nor duration, how it's said in Dzogchen. Here the moving arises as stillness and dissolves as stillness, and was never anything other than stillness. So instead of just your focus being on being still, you open it up. You don't look over at the moving. Here is where you broaden, you open up your focus from one pointed focus on stillness, which is a point focus, to the broad focus, which includes the moving. And so thinking does not bother your meditation of Laktong, of direct seeing. And meditation does not disturb your ability to think, because they are the same thing. So your practice tonight is to see that for yourself. By resting in Shine on an object and then opening that one-pointed focus on the non-object of empty spaciousness, stillness, opening that up to include the arising and vanishing of phenomena, without not being in stillness as stillness, so that moving and stillness are the same thing, arising as no thing. And slowly with this, all arisings, including the perceiver, which is changing with each bit of movement arising and yet changes in no way whatsoever, being stillness in stillness as stillness. Rest there. Laktong, direct seeing.
Can we use sky gazing practice for any one of these yogas?
Yes, after Lacton. When you start moving towards Rochik. Tomorrow.
Dilgo Rinpoche spoke about 22 knots that tie the red and white to the central channel and prevent flow. Are these pagchas? And how does one assess how tight or loose those knots are?
They are the pagchas of being a Homo sapien. A shared group karma of your species. They're different for octopuses. And those knots are made of the same no thing as everything else. They are a phenomena. All dharmas arise in mind and dissolve in mind, and were never anything else in mind. Why do you want to know the specific tightness or looseness of 22 knots that tie the red and the white to the central channel? In Mahāmudrā, that particular kind of knowledge would not be considered useful here. That's not just to hide the fact that I have no idea how you would tell that. But that really is saying, no, it wouldn't be useful here, even though I have no idea how you would tell how tight or loose they are. There would be sensations and squeaks that you could tell by, but I have not read this text, the text that describes them, which I'm sure is out there somewhere in Tibetan. So I can't really answer a specific on that question. And for Mahāmudrā, you don't need it.
Is the stillness beyond the four extreme views, existence, non-existence, both, and neither?
Lactong is. The stillness is not. However, the dancing stillness is. One more step.
Is this an acceptable way to approach meditation? Relax and be like a mirror.
Yeah, maybe. It could be taken to an extreme or misunderstood quite easily. But it works with the pebble. And it works in Shine without an object. It becomes a less accurate analogy as we move on to Lactong.
Do all perceived phenomena arise within the central channel, given that the diameter of the central channel is only limited by concept?
All perceived phenomena arise within the channels, but not. There is one way of looking at it where they all arise in the central channel because all channels are connected to the central channel. So the root of the experiences in some of the other channels and chakras that are not on the central channel, like in the palms of your hands, nonetheless is rooted in what's going on in the central channel because it's connected. And yes, Sahalung Tigli Le Chapsuchiwo. The channels as vast as your imagination, your mind extends. As vast as your mind extends, Dharmakaya extends. The channels themselves, a symbol of Dharmakaya. The chi that runs within them, a symbol of the awareness. And the creation of that, the Tigli, a symbol of the dance of phenomena, insubstantial, no thing. So yes, after a fashion.
How are you so patient?
I don't feel particularly patient. I just really like Dzogchen and Mahāmudrā. And when you find something that you really, really like, there's an urge to share it with people. But in the Tibetan system, we can only share it if somebody asks. You can't shove cookies down somebody's throat if they don't happen to want a cookie, even if you just baked a whole bunch of really nice cookies. Next.
That's the end of the question. Or rather, the question is, how do you always answer my questions right before I ask them to you, before I relay them?
I have no idea. Literally, that's how. I don't think about it. Nge wandi nyor duda che che sala go pashu. We are complete.